All right. So for the fire on hit function, we want to make sure that the other, which is the enemy that's hitting the fire, is active. If they are active, then we're going to check if they are small by checking their animation ID. If it's either of the small ones, then we know it's small. We'll just spawn it on a random side rather than the side that it was spawned on. And we will also spawn a new enemy that is enraged always. And then we'll disable the enemy and, the entity and the body here. So that's what these are for. Now, when we run the game, we should have both the small enemies and large enemies becoming enraged and spawning at the top. Alright, we've got our first small enemy, and we've got a couple of them now. Large one coming up, and there it is. So this is exactly what we wanted. If we have a look at our list, what have we got? We've got the enraged enemies. So do their HP get restored? Yes. Do they get increased movement speed? Yes. Do the animations get changed? Yes. So I will mark this as done. As for this one, the trigger will move any enemies to the top. That's done. Enemies should be enraged. Enemies should be healed. That's done. So I suppose we'll just finish this off right now. Okay, now for the fire. So there is a PNG available on GitHub called fire.png. I've already set it up here. So we set up a sprite sheet. The width is 32 and the height is 64. And then down here we set up the animation definition. It's got 7 frames and we're just using a 0.1 linear time between each frame. Create the animation, and we're actually going to use 3 little fire sprites. They're going to be entities, but they don't collide with anything. They don't have any callbacks for collisions, and they are kinematic. And we're just going to set them at the bottom middle of the screen. So one in the center, one slightly down and to the left, and one slightly down and to the right. And we also need to set this up, this anim fire ID variable at the top of the file with our other IDs. That should be everything. And you should have fire that looks something like this. All right, there it is. I think it looks pretty decent. You can see the enemies falling down into the fire, and then they come back red. Pretty convincing. So that's this one done. And this, well, kind of. And the last thing, we needed to kill the player, and then we're done. All right, here we go. This should be pretty simple. We just say else if other collision layer is equal to the player. Collision layer, that's not player. Player. Then we want to reset. We don't have a function called reset yet, but we're about to make it. So reset is basically going to do, let me just close this. It's basically going to do everything from, after we've initialized everything kind of, scratch that. All right, so reset is actually going to do everything basically below here. Except the sprite sheets, they're not going to be reset. So I'll move that up, but it's going to create all of the physics bodies again, because we're going to erase all the bodies, erase all the entities, reset the music and clean everything up, and then start again. So let's get into it. For the sake of simplicity, I suppose we'll just put the function here, call it reset, takes no arguments. And we want to call some functions that we haven't made yet, physics reset and entities reset. These are just going to remove all the entities and all the physics bodies, or rather reset the count of the arrays. It's not actually going to wipe the data. So we want to do that, and we also want to reset the music. So we can do that with audio music play, and we'll play the music stage 1 again. Okay, what else do we want to do? So we want to create the player entity. Where do we do that? Down here somewhere. Here it is. Also, we need access to the render width and height, but that's fine. They shouldn't change. So we'll grab these, bring them up into reset. Now, player ID, don't think we need that. At least not at the moment. Fire on hit is below, so this is a problem. All right, we're going to have to forward declare one of these. I suppose it should be reset. So we'll just put this at the top of the file here. And then we'll grab this function and just move it down below fire on hit. There we go. Okay, that's good. Now what else do we need to do? All of these sprite sheets don't need to be reinitialized. only need to be initialized once. All the animations only need to be initialized once. Any entities need to be recreated. And also the player animations and texture slots should be reset. So we're going to move texture slots out into the file scope, and we're going to loop through. Actually, I don't think that's necessary. We can just leave it as it is. Was it? It's F30, U32, yeah. Okay, we'll just put the texture slots up here. That makes sense. And down here, we don't have the player ID because I just deleted it, which was a bit silly. There we go, player ID, there we go, etc, etc. Now, going to be a bunch of problems. Yes, so the player ID is always going to be 0, but I suppose just to make sure we should set a variable up here. Static usize player ID. There we go. Okay, that's all good. Set the walk. Wait, why is it walk? Shouldn't it be idle? Actually, I don't think we need to do this at all because we've got this down here setting the player animation. That's fine. Okay, that's all good. Now we need to create these functions. Physics reset and entities reset. So we'll go to physics first. So all we're going to do here is we're going to say state static body list length equals 0, and the body list length is 0, and that's it. Don't think there's any other state that we have. Gravity, terminal velocity, that's fine. And we'll do the same thing for entities. So an entity.h. I just realized we didn't actually implement entity destroy or entity damage yet, but we'll do that later. Entity, we've got entity reset already defined here. So did I have that in physics? No. Okay. There's no reset actually implemented, so we'll just do it now. Entity reset. It's exactly the same. We're just going to get the entity list, set the length to 0, and that's it. However, this is wrong. Entity reset. There we go. Now when we load the main function we want to call reset, we don't want to play this music now. We want to play it when we start. So we'll call reset down here. There we go. Okay, we've got music, we've got jumping, enemies, everything seems to be the same. Fire is animating. Good, good, good. We'll just wait for this guy to go into the fire. All right, that's looking good. We can mark that off. Oh no, I didn't kill the player. I didn't test killing a player. Let's just test that. Okay, it does reset. The player should probably start in the middle, but anyway, yeah, that's working. Let's mark that off. This is done. Okay, what's next? We've got player death. That's all done. Actually, the timers don't reset. Let's just do that real quick. Yeah, any timers. Timer. We've got a ground timer, a shoot timer, and a spawn timer. So we'll just reset all of those to 0. Okay, there we go. All done. We're getting pretty close now. Finally, time to add the weapons. Okay, so I just want to talk about the weapons system for a second, how it's going to work. I'm thinking since the player can only have one weapon active at a time, then these will just be an enum. So we'll have a weapon type enum, and then each one of these weapon types will have a struct associated with it, which will just be a weapon struct, and it will have things like bullet size, because there's 3 different kinds of bullets. There's small bullets, large bullets, and rockets. Rockets aren't bullets, but you know what I mean. Projectile size or projectile type. And there is projectile speed, and there's also the fire rate, so time between shots. I think there's another thing, kickback. Yeah, there's kickback. So if you're shooting the submachine gun, it actually has quite a bit of a kick, which doesn't really make sense now that you think about it. But anyway, I digress. All right, so we're going to start the player with a pistol. So let's just make the weapon types and the pistol struct first. All right, so we'll just define it up here. We've got a, we want a type def for an enum, which we're going to call weapon type. And if I can type properly, there we go. What's wrong with this? I don't see anything wrong with this, except there's nothing in between it. So, weapon type. So we're going to have weapon type. Oh yeah, we have a shotgun as well. I forgot about that. I didn't write it on the list here. So just pretend there's a shotgun there. Shotgun, pistol, revolver, SMG, and a rocket launcher. Okay, that's good. And we should also have a weapon type none. No, we shouldn't. That's fine. Now, for each weapon, they have a particular set of characteristics. So we're going to have a struct weapon. And now they're going to have fire rate, which is actually time between shots. What else do they need? Kickback. Or I guess I could call that recoil. It doesn't affect the aiming, but it moves the player backwards. What else is there? Fire rate, recoil, bullet type, which we haven't created yet, or projectile type. So we're going to make this enum in a second. And I guess projectile speed, because the caliber of the projectile doesn't necessarily determine, well, it doesn't determine the speed. That would be determined by, I guess, the makeup of the bullet, but I mean, we're not a realistic game. Type def, so this is going to be an enum as well. Projectile type. There we go, projectile type. So there's going to be 2 calibers and a rocket. So small, large, and a rocket. There we go. Okay, now we need a variable to set which weapon type the player is actually holding. So we're just going to set that here. Static weapon type. Weapon type, yeah, that's it. Player is the only one that holds weapons, so that should be fine. Yeah, also this code is going to be changed. Let's not worry about that right now. So weapon type, it should start as a pistol. So we're going to set it to pistol. There we go. Now, what we also need to do is create an array where we're going to store these weapon values. And then we're going to populate them at the beginning. So we'll do that. We'll say, yeah, here's fine. Static weapon array. Or actually, we can just use, can we use the enum value? We can. So if we put a count enum value at the end of this, then we can actually define an array here called weapons, I guess, and use the weapon type count as its size. How cool is that? Now, down in main somewhere, where we set up all of our other values, we can just set up our weapons. So, we could just say weapons, weapon type pistol equals cast this to a weapon struct. And what have we got? Projectile type is going to be small. Projectile speed. I don't know off the top of my head. I'll just set it to 200. What else do we have? Fire rate. I'm not sure either. I'll set that to 0.1 or something for now. And I don't know about the recoil either. So we'll just set that to 2. Okay, so for now we'll just test the weapon. At the minute, there's no way to make bullets appear. So we're going to have to add that somewhere. There's a shoot timer. That's useful. In the input, is there a shoot? There is down. We don't need that. So in input, we can replace down with shoot. Left, right, up, shoot, and I guess escape is still fine. Input key shoot, and in the ini file, we'll change this to shoot, and I'm going to set it as E because I'm using a Colmac keyboard, but I guess you could set it to something on the right hand side, or whatever you want, X or something like that. Spacebar. Oh, spacebar is probably jump, isn't it? Well, actually it's not for me, but anyway. Okay, so we should just have a shoot key state now. And if we go to the handle input, we can just, I suppose in here, say if global.input.shoot, then we want to shoot the gun. And it's going to be different depending on the gun. So, how do we do this? Bullet, it's not a bullet, it's a projectile type. Let's see. Weapon. Weapon equals weapons, weapon type. Okay, weapon, we've got a recoil, fire rate, and projectile speed. Projectile type. So, I guess we'll do a switch on the projectile type. And we'll say if it's a large, then do whatever it is, and then break, and small, and rocket. I don't know why that got pushed over there. What's the problem? They are handled in the switch, are they not? Right. Okay, so for a small projectile, what are we gonna do? Jeez, okay. You probably want to create an entity at the player position. And this is really annoying me. I'm gonna create a function for this called spawn projectile, and it's going to take in the projectile type. Oh, you know what? We could actually just make a function called shoot, and it can just read from the state. No, this is fine. Projectile type. Okay, and down here, just gonna say spawn projectile. What? Didn't I just create that? Ah. Okay, so I'm going to spawn a projectile at the player position. Let's do that. Okay, so when we're spawning a projectile, we're going to get the player and the body spawning at the body position. Now we need a size. We don't have that yet. We need a sprite offset. We don't have that yet. Velocity, we can probably set to something like... well, I think we should set a velocity here. Velocity equals... projectile. No, actually, we should be able to get that from the weapon. So projectile, no, not projectile, weapon, projectile speed. However, we don't know if the player's flipped, then we need to do negative. So, is it on body? Nope. Is it on entity? It's on the animation, isn't it? Okay. Animation. Animation ID. What's the problem with this? Alright. Animation equals animation get player ID. Now we can say, I'll just declare a boolean here, is flipped equals animation is flipped. Seems like a weird way to do it now that I think about it. But anyway, is flipped, then negative, otherwise positive. Collision layer. So we're just going to set it to 0 and 0 for now. Is kinematic. True. It's not affected by gravity. The animation ID, we don't have an animation for it yet. No on-hit event yet. No static on-hit event yet. So there's a lot of things that we don't have yet. So, animation ID. We can set that to something like projectile. Actually, you know what? We could get it from the weapon. The weapon could have it. Weapon dot animation ID or projectile animation ID. That makes sense. And this can actually be on the weapon as well. Sprite offset. And a size. Sprite size. That's good, that's good. What are we missing here? Okay, I think that's all fine. So we're gonna have to go up to the weapon definition. Change this so it has a sprite size. Sprite offset. Actually, now that I think about it, isn't that on the entity? Doesn't that already exist on entities? Ah, but we have to create... Yeah, that's what we're doing. Alright, so that's good. And projectile animation ID is a usize. Okay. So we're passing a... Oh, right. Let's move this up into the velocity vector. And y will always be 0. Just passing velocity here. Okay, looking good. Of course, it's not going to work because we don't have the animation set up. So let's do that now. It's in our props sprite sheet. That's where the bullets are, which means they're all 16 by 16 pixels. So we'll say adef sprite, not sprite, projectile small. Sprite sheet props. Duration, what do we do for these ones that don't actually change? Whereas map, oh no, map's not in here. Well, they're not actually animated, so do we need to make an animation? We don't, I think, but let's just do it this way anyway. So columns, this needs to be a U8, column 0, and the frame count is just 1, which really makes me think we should just do render sprite sheet frame. Like this. But then we have to do special treatment for it. That's fine. Alright. So we make the animation definition. Then we make the anim projectile small ID equals animation create. False. It doesn't loop. Alright. Set up the animation ID for small. The only thing we're shooting is the small ones. Now for the weapon, where is it? Here. Projectile animation ID is small projectile. There we go. And sprite size is... Is that gonna work? No. Sprite size. Okay. Just do that. And sprite offset, we're just going to put a 0, 0. Alright, let's see what we got. We got errors. Input key down in input and config. Alright. Okay, there we go. Alright, I'm spawning players. That's cool. Not exactly what I had in mind. That's pretty cool. Looks nice. Starting to lag my computer because they're not dying. Alright. That's definitely not what we wanted, so let's fix that. Alright, so where we... down where we detect the shot, I've also added a clause here to check that the shoot timer is less than or equal to 0. And then also set the shoot timer back to the fire rate of the current weapon. So that should help. However, we are still shooting players and that timer is never decreasing. So we need to go back into main, go into our main loop here, and we have to update the timers. So I think we should just do that here. Timer, what timers do I have? Shoot timer. What's the delta time? Is it global.time.delta? There we go. There should be some other timers that we have. Spawn timer. I guess that one is updating. I'm going to update it up here though. And the last one is ground timer. We still need to sort that out. Okay, so we should be able to shoot every 0.1 seconds. Yeah, that looks about right. Definitely about 0.1 seconds, but shooting the wrong thing. So that's a bit odd, considering we set the animation ID for the pistol, which is what we start with, weapon type. So I'm not quite sure why that's happening. Let's have a look. Entity create, weapon, projectile animation ID. Yeah, that should be fine. So we're going to head over to the debugger to check this out. Let's start this configuration, run to main, and where we want to actually go to is not here. We'll just delete these. I want to go to, all right, this spawn projectile function. Here we go. Let's have a look. So we'll just continue. We'll shoot. Bam. Spawn a projectile. Move that off the screen. So now we're spawning projectile, and let's just have a look at what's available to us. So we've got the velocity 200, is flipped, is false. So the animation here is the player animation ID. That's fine. The weapon projectile animation ID is 0 somehow. Yeah, this is balked. This is the wrong... Actually, no, this is correct. 0.1. For some reason, I guess floating point differences, it's like very close to 0.1. But why is the projectile animation ID 0? As down in main, we explicitly set it to this, which is 7. Of course, because we haven't set them up yet. We can't initialize the weapons before we set up the animations for the weapons. Yes. Okay, so let's just move this down. Down here, down here. There we go. Now we should be getting the correct result where we shoot bullets. Yeah, there we go. The hitboxes are definitely too large, but that's fine. We can sort that out. We are shooting bullets though. Good.